8 days after Israel began striking the head of the axis of evil in the Middle East, the Islamic Revolutionary Guards Corps and the nuclear weapons program that they always said they never had and would never give up, the United States President Donald Trump ordered the United States Air Force and the Navy to unleash firepower only they could unleash. This has already resulted in the destruction of key parts of that nuclear program, and although some might say it can still be rebuilt, I don't think that's true. In any case, Iran's ability to harm me and my family, my friends, and the countrymen of Israel has now been dealt a devastating setback. President Donald Trump announced that the strikes in a social media post saying a full load of bombs was dropped, and then later he added simply that Fordow is gone. He added, instead of taking the sensible route and announcing that they will surrender, the Ayatollah regime responded by launching a barrage of missiles at Israel and declaring on social media, now the war begins. And shortly after this social media exchange, President Donald Trump made a brief statement from the White House with his senior advisors, including Vice President J.D. Vance, standing behind him, in which he declared, "This is an opening that the world hasn't seen in decades. No military in the world could have done what we've done." He added, "Thank you, Netanyahu. We worked as a team. If Iran does not stop, a greater tragedy awaits." And shortly thereafter, official statements by the Pentagon confirmed that 6 JBU-57 massive ordnance penetration bombs were dropped on Fordow, and 2 additional bombs on the facility at Natanz. In addition, a barrage of 30 submarine-launched Tomahawk cruise missiles were also fired at Natanz and the nuclear facility at Isfahan, causing massive damage to both sides. An initial bomb damage assessment report included that the statements that Iran's nuclear ambitions are officially dead. Another statement added that all United States forces are currently out of danger, but the defense establishment is monitoring the possibility of an Iranian response. And guys, once again, we have a lot to talk about today, so let's dive into the details. I'm Yair Pinto, and this is your Boots on the Ground report that gathers for you the most detailed truth about what is happening in Israel and the Middle East. But before we continue, we're just wanting to let you know that this battle is about the truth. So make sure to subscribe and stay updated on all of our Boots on the Ground reports. I can't say this more clearly, people. The games are over. The United States of America, the most powerful country in human history, has thrown the full weight of its power against the great bully in the Middle East, Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guards Corps, and the world is a better, safer, and more secure place because of it. The United States attacked the Iranian regime's most secure nuclear facility at Fordow earlier on Sunday morning, despite President Trump's statement just a couple of days ago that he would make his decision about whether to attack or not within 2 weeks. A lot of people thought that he meant that nothing would happen for at least 2 weeks, but that was not what he said. He said within 2 weeks, and that meant it could happen at any moment. People who heard what they wanted to hear have no one but themselves to blame for being surprised. In any case, probably within the next 24 hours or less, we'll know for sure if the Iranian nuclear program has truly evaporated. But in a certain sense, the extent of the damage doesn't really matter. What matters is that the President of the United States decided to put an end to Iran's deadly game, and the whole world must now take note, including America's friends, their enemies, and everybody in between. On that note, it's important to point out that President Trump thanked Israel, thanked the IDF, and Netanyahu personally for assisting in the planning of this operation. This is the beginning of a process of rebuilding the image of a superpower that will stand on its principles and defend its interests and those of its allies. To paraphrase Winston Churchill, this isn't the end of the problems that Iran poses to the world, but it is definitely the end of the beginning. Israel's Prime Minister, Mr. Benjamin Netanyahu, said after the American attack on Iran that he has always believed in peace through strength, but that first comes strength, then comes peace. In further elaborations, the Prime Minister released two statements in Hebrew and English, thanking President Trump and the United States, who acted with full force and praised the bold decision that will change history. He added, "I promised that Iran's nuclear facilities would be destroyed one way or the other. That promise has been fulfilled. In my humble opinion, the Ayatollah regime should know when it's time to quit, but apparently they don't agree." Iran's foreign ministry issued a statement saying that the United States started a dangerous war and a channel affiliated with the Revolutionary Guards threatened to destroy American bases in the region, saying they will become ashes. Of course, the United States military bases in Iraq, in Syria, and elsewhere in the region have been preparing for this moment for a long time, and now they're on maximum alert, preparing for Iran's retaliation. Candidly, I think they would be very foolish to retaliate by hitting United States bases, and I'm not the only one that thinks this. I believe that they will focus their attacks on Israel. And President Donald Trump said in a special statement, Iran must surrender. For the sake of the long-suffering Iranian people, I hope that the regime does surrender, because if they try to fight the Americans now, they will only be inviting further death and destruction on Iran. They cannot win, but there is still a way for them to avoid losing everything. On that note, it is also important for me to report that Israel is not done hitting the Ayatollah regime in Iran, destroying more of their ballistic missile launchers and other strategic weapons, but not before Iran launched a barrage of about 30 missiles at Israeli cities, wounding almost 100 people and causing enormous physical damage. So guys, please pray for the Israeli civilians and the rescue teams that are still working to dig survivors out of the rubble and the destroyed buildings, even as we're recording this video here. But again, things are even worse in Iran, where the IDF launched another wave of strikes this morning and is well on its way to delivering a humiliating strategic defeat to the Islamic Revolutionary Guards Corps that will be remembered for years to come. It's actually not too early to start adding up some statistics from this campaign, so let's take a look at that. Iran launched 1,100 UAVs so far in this war. Of these, 300 were intercepted by the Air Force, 200 were intercepted in the skies over Syria, and 100 penetrated Israeli territory but were shot down. It's important to remember and thank the Jordanian Air Force, which has also shot down a number of drones that Iran fired at us, saying that they would not allow their airspace to be used by either side. So, thanks to Jordan for that. It didn't hurt Israel's efforts to strike Iran, but it closed a very important effort and path for them to attack us. And speaking of which, around 500 ballistic missiles were fired at Israel by Iran, and around 50 or 10% managed to penetrate the air defensive systems and impact in Israeli cities. That last part is important to remember because last October, Iran's barrage of missiles targeted IDF air bases, but this time, most of the missiles that they fired were aimed at civilian population centers. With that in mind, Israel has raised the alert level in the Galilee and along the northern border regions as the possibility looms of resumed rocket and missile attacks from Hezbollah in Lebanon. But so far, that doesn't seem to be happening. Now, with all that in mind, prepare yourselves for a deep dive into all the details about America's strategic strikes on Iran's renegade nuclear program. We know that Iran's facility in Fordow was built under the mountains, 80 meters deep in a massive concrete-reinforced cavern that was the only nuclear facility that Israel couldn't destroy on its own. Inside this facility was hundreds of highly sophisticated uranium enrichment centrifuges that the International Atomic Energy Agency said was being used to enrich uranium to 60% purity, which for technical reasons is close to the level of 90% purity that is needed for nuclear weapons. And according to the latest IAEA reports Iran had accumulated 408.6 kilograms of uranium enriched to 60%, which, if further enriched, would have given them enough material for several nuclear bombs. Now, it is very important for you to understand that this stockpile of highly enriched uranium is still out there somewhere. We don't know exactly where it is. It might have been in these facilities that the United States destroyed this morning, or it might have been moved to a different location. So we'll have more to say about this in just a few more days, but first, I want to tell you a joke. It goes like this: Israel is winning the war on the battlefield, but Iran is winning the war on social media. Pretty sad, right? But that's the truth about this joke, and this is the reality that we're living in. And guys, Israel has been fighting this war on multiple fronts, and we are losing the war for people's minds, the war for the truth. So we need your help, guys. We are launching a campaign to stand with Israel now and share the truth. If you want to be part of this campaign, please visit www.tbn.org/standwithisrael and help us create more videos and share the truth, boots on the ground style. We'll start with a quick update from the recent hours following the attack, and then we'll dive into all the details about the American strike on the nuclear facilities at Fordow, Isfahan, and Natanz. So there was a heavy barrage from Iran towards northern and central Israel of about 30 missiles, most of which were intercepted, but impacts were reported in Haifa, in Be'er Yaakov, Nes Ziona, and Tel Aviv, most of them hitting civilian neighborhoods. At least 86 people were wounded, mostly moderately or lightly, thank God. That's the truth. Now, let's hear about what the IRGC had to say about this. According to their statement, they attacked with long-range missiles and tactics to bypass the Israeli defenses. Simultaneously, the Houthis and the Iranians threatened together that any American civilian or military personnel in the region is now a legitimate target. And President Donald Trump responded to this with his own threats, saying any retaliation will be met with far greater force than we've seen. And meanwhile, Lebanon's prime minister sent a very sensible message to Hezbollah, saying it is important that we avoid involvement in this conflict. With that in mind, the IDF considers the overnight American attacks in Iran as very significant, but notes that a great deal of analysis and assessment work remains to be done before final results can be announced. The military emphasizes that the American strike was fully coordinated with Israel, but without direct operational cooperation. Immediately afterwards, the Israeli Air Force also attacked, and this is according to the prearranged plan. The IDF says that the Israeli strikes disrupted Iran's firing and coordination capabilities, aiming to damage its response mechanism. They also note that since the United States entered combat, significant changes in Iranian behavior are evident, and additional targets are expected to be attacked later. Now, I want to do two things at this point. First, I want to ask you to help us spread the truth by sharing this video on YouTube, following us on social media, and subscribing to this channel if you haven't already. But I also want to ask you to pray for this situation, because there are a lot of things that could still go wrong. I know you're already praying for Israel, and I want to tell you that your prayers matter. But right now, we have an opportunity to do even more. Our friends at One for Israel are on the ground, meeting urgent needs and boldly sharing the hope of Jesus the Messiah, Yeshua, in Hebrew, right in the heart of this conflict. While the world is raging, Jews and Arabs in Israel are finding unity in the gospel. It's powerful, it's supernatural, and it's happening right now. They're already reaching nearly 90 million views with the message of Yeshua, and they're rising up disciples, pastors, and leaders through their Bible college. This is good news coming out of Israel, and you can be part of that. Here's how. Go to oneforisrael.org/pray. Again, that's oneforisrael.org/pray, and download their free 31-day prayer guide. It's one of the most powerful ways that you can engage in this spiritual battle that is taking place right now. So don't wait. Israel needs your prayers, and the time to stand is now. And now back to the news. Okay, let's make some order regarding what's happened in the last 24 hours. To state the obvious, this didn't start in the last 24 hours. The planning and the preparations for something like this is a process which takes years, and the United States and the Israeli militaries have both been training together and preparing for this moment for a very long time. With that having been said, reports started emerging on Saturday morning in the United States that 6 B-2 strategic bombers took off from Whiteman Air Force Base in Missouri, heading for the United States Air Base on the Pacific island of Guam. It is always significant when we hear about American strategic bombers on the move, but this was particularly significant news because the B-2 is the only aircraft in the world capable of delivering the GBU-57 massive ordnance penetrator into a target, and it was specifically designed to hit targets like Iran's Fordow nuclear enrichment plant. The GBU-57 bomb weighs about 13.6 tons, and its casing is made from high-density steel alloy that allows it to penetrate approximately 60 meters deep into solid rock or concrete before it explodes. In the days leading up to this strike, we heard about this weapon from every news analysis show on the planet, and everyone understood that it was a key part of this ongoing drama. And then, in the middle of the night in Israel, the announcement arrived that changed everything. The American president wrote on a Truth social media platform that we have completed a very successful strike on Iran's 3 nuclear sites, Fordow, Natanz, and Isfahan. All aircrafts are now out of Iranian airspace. A full load of bombs was dropped on the main site, Fordow. All planes are safely heading home. Congratulations to our great American warriors. No other military in the world could have done this. Now is the time for peace. Thank you for your attention to this matter. An American official quoted in United States media updated that 6 B-2 bombers dropped 6 heavy bunker-busting bombs on the Fordow nuclear site, and according to that source, 1 bomber also dropped 2 bunker-busting bombs at Natanz. As I said before, we will need to take a look at satellite photographs and other intelligence before being able to make a final analysis, but according to the initial Israeli assessments, the American strike at Fordow was successful. And regarding Natanz, Israel estimates that the United States completed the site's destruction following earlier Israeli attacks. In Isfahan, the Americans attacked a site carved into a mountain that stored enriched material, and heavy damage is believed to have occurred there in that location as well. It's important to point out that one reason for the United States attacks on Iran's nuclear facilities at this time is that intelligence assessments showed that the Israeli strikes so far had only set the nuclear weapons project back by about 6 months. I would add a side note to this that such assessments are very subjective and they should never be taken at face value. However, Iran's nuclear project was certainly very far advanced when Israel launched Operation Rising Lion last week, and the Israeli position all along was that Israel could destroy this program by ourselves, but if America joined the campaign, it would speed up the process and save many lives. In this context, it's important to know that Israel and the United States coordinated before the attack on Fordow, and several hours earlier, President Donald Trump updated Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu about the decision that was made, and senior Israeli officials were confident in recent days that Trump would ultimately join, but at the same time prepared to handle Fordow themselves if he revised his decision. In fact, Israel's war cabinet convened overnight between Saturday and Sunday to monitor the progress of the American attack and prepare for the Israeli strikes which were scheduled to follow. Once again, an appeal is being made to what's left of the Ayatollah regime to realize that they can no longer win this war, and the time has come to surrender and save the people of Iran from further suffering and bloodshed. President Trump declared that they need to make peace now, adding they must stop immediately, otherwise they will be attacked again. And according to a CNN report, Trump hopes that the strikes in Iran will initiate a diplomatic process and for now does not plan further attacks. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu issued a separate statement that President Trump and I often say, peace through strength. First strength, then peace. And tonight, President Trump and the United States acted with full strength. Your bold decision to strike Iran's nuclear facilities with America's enormous power will change history. In Operation Rising Lion, Israel truly did amazing things. Tonight's action was unprecedented. The United States did what no other country in the world could do. History will remember that President Donald Trump acted to take down the world's most dangerous regime and to destroy the world's most dangerous weapons. His leadership created a historic turning point that can lead the Middle East and beyond into a future of prosperity and peace. Now, to give us a closer look at all of this, we turn to TBN Israel's senior Middle East analyst, Mati Shoshani.
Thank you, Yair. Indeed, very dramatic days. The next 48 hours are going to show us where this region is going, whether it's to continued conflict with the Iranians or whether or not we're going back to the negotiation table with a deal that requires Iran to completely disarm itself from every nuclear capability. Last night's attacks show us clearly that Israel and the US mean business when it comes to the Iranians, and this is the money time. This is when we're going to find out how much they want to fight and how reasonable they're going to be. So let's get started with the basics. First of all, what did the US attack? Well, the US attacked with multiple B-2 bombers, the strategic stealth bombers using massive ordnance bombs, what we would call in layman's terms, bunker-busting bombs. And they used them against hardened targets, so a nuclear facility in Fordow, a city in Iran. And the reason they did that is because that attack is what is bringing, well, not necessarily the end, but what's expediting Israel's attack on the Iranians. It took the Americans more than 8 days to join this attack, but once they did, it was done in a strategic manner. They helped Israel where Israel needed help most, in a place where our F-15s, F-16s, F-35s simply aren't sufficient or capable enough to really bring sufficient damage fast enough. It would have taken multiple bombing missions for Israel to get the achievements that the US gained. But it gets really interesting when we dive into the details. Now we're at a place where sort of the decision fork or the decision matrix becomes far more simplified for both the US, Iran, and Israel. Now we all know that the Iranians have no chance of winning this conflict. Now it's abundantly clear that the US has entered the game and that they mean to end this in the way President Trump and Prime Minister Netanyahu outlined, which is no more nuclear program for the Iranians, no more enriched uranium for the Iranians. And then everything that falls in line after that is just a question of details. How long, how fast, and what exactly needs to happen. Interestingly enough, the international community is 100% behind Israel and the US attack. They're calling on the Iranians to cease fire. They're calling on them to seek an agreement with Israel and the US, and they're calling on them to comply with supervision of their nuclear program. This will pull the Iranians back to where they were many years ago, which is where they had on the ground in Iran supervisors from different organizations and different treaties with different acronyms, but all in all, it's mostly Europeans that are on the ground supervising their many nuclear facilities. And what that gives these countries and what it gives these entities that are supervising them is the ability to knock on the Iranian door at whatever facility and say, open up the bunkers, open up the vaults. We want to see what you have. We want to see your nuclear facilities and what you're hiding in them. And that really prevents them from enriching uranium and pushing for a bomb at any significant pace. Now here's the next phase of this. We need to understand where this is going. There are about 3 quick options that we need to understand. Option number 1 is the fast option, 2 is the medium option, and 3 is a long-term option. So let's go from the easy to the hard one. The easiest option is this all ends in a couple days. The Iranians ask for a ceasefire, they get the ceasefire from Israel, they get the ceasefire from the Americans, they publicly announce through intermediaries or directly the fact that they give up or they relinquish their desire for a bomb. They seize all operations. They stop trying to attack vessels in the Red Sea or the Arabian Sea, and they give in to whatever negotiation comes down the line where they would have ultimately no nuclear capabilities left. So that's the quick one. That's the obvious one. That ends the attacks on Israel very quickly, almost overnight. But then there's several other versions. There's a medium version. And the medium version is Israel continues to bomb Iran, and the US continues to bomb Iran. And the Iranians, instead of just targeting missiles against Israel, they start playing a long game. And the longer game is they start targeting shipping containers on top of ships traveling through the Arabian Sea and the Red Sea. And more importantly, they start targeting the oil carriers that are traveling through the Straits of Hormuz. We've talked about this many times. The global economy really comes and rises and falls through the straits, be it the Gibraltar Straits in the Mediterranean or many other straits, the Bosphorus, the Dardanelles, that Turkey controls, and here the Straits of Hormuz in front of Iran, and of course the Bab el-Mandab Straits that are between Yemen and Africa. And these straits sort of are a chokehold point over global trade as it's seaborne. And in that area, in the Hormuz Straits, just across from Iran, about 20% of raw petroleum in the world travels on an annual basis. So this is Saudi oil, Qatari oil, Kuwaiti oil, and of course Emirati oil, all traveling through the sea. Of course, the Iranians have their own ships, but we're talking about their enemies right now. And if they want to, they can disrupt global trade in a way that will be painful to many players around the world. There's an even worse option, and the worst option is the Iranian Islamic regime sort of doubles down on what they've been doing. They close the Straits of Hormuz, they prevent maritime trade, they start attacking ships traveling through the Red Sea, through the Houthis or directly with IRGC ships. They start destabilizing the region once again, and they continue to fire rockets at Israel. Now, mind you, these are massive rockets, and they have a lot of them. And even if it's just one or two a day, for many months, that can cause a substantial amount of damage to Israel, but also make it very, very hard to get back to regular life in this country. And we've turned that into a war of attrition. And that is something no one is interested in. Not the US, not Israel, and I think the Iranians shouldn't be interested either. The next 48 hours are going to tell us where this is going. Whether Iran will decide to double down on its foreign policy and continue to launch rockets and disrupt maritime trade in the Hormuz Straits, or do they give in? Do they capitulate? Do they surrender to Israel and the US and say, that's it, we've had enough, we give up on our nuclear program, we're willing to come back to the negotiation table in good favor? Which one is going to happen? That's really up to Iran right now. This could end in 48 hours, and this could be drawn out for many more days, weeks, and even possibly longer than that in a war of attrition fought over the sea and in the air in an endless series of Israeli attacks over Iran and Iranian ballistic missiles targeting Israel. Only the next few hours will tell us where we're going, and truly it is in the hands of the Iranian government whether they not want to prolong this conflict or end it quickly. On the defending side or the attacking side, depending on how you look at it, both Israel and the US are ready to go full out against the Iranians. We've shown commitment, we've shown capability, and so has the US. And the Iranians need to decide now if they want to end this nicely or they want to prolong it and end at a much worse state than they entered into. Now back to Yair Pinto.
Thank you very much, Mati Shoshani. Thanks for explaining all of this and what happened. Now, I want to call on all of you watching this video to continue spreading the truth. Right now, we, the residents of Israel, are sitting next to our phones waiting for the alert that will send us once again running to bomb shelters as the air defense units try to shoot down all the ballistic missiles and the drones that the Iranian Revolutionary Guards Corps fires at our civilians because they are enraged at all the damage that we're doing to their military and to their nuclear sites. I appeal to our audience, continue spreading the truth, share and follow us, and most importantly, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and support our efforts to share the truth from Israel. In typical fashion, the Iranian response to the American attack was long on bluster and threats, but it also included some concrete actions. The IRGC statement included a line that America's attack would have long-term consequences, and there is an expectation that the IRGC and their proxies will attempt to carry out attacks on American military bases and diplomatic missions around the Middle East and possibly also elsewhere. Iranian sources warned Qatar this week, even before the American attack, that United States bases in the Persian Gulf would be legitimate targets for an Iranian response in case of a United States strike, and this is according to a report on the Washington Post. It is important to remember that Iranian-controlled terrorist groups and criminal syndicates have even attempted to carry out attacks on United States soil in the past. So if you're watching this in the United States or Europe, I urge you to be on the lookout for trouble. Now, back to the Middle East. The United States military has deployed tens of thousands of personnel at bases across the region, including in Iraq, Syria, Jordan, Qatar, Kuwait, and the United Arab Emirates. In the past, Iranian attacks were primarily focused on Iraq. Al-Assad base in Iraq, located approximately 240 kilometers from Baghdad, is the largest base in the country. Iran and its proxies have consistently attacked this base in recent years using missiles and rockets, mortars, and other weapons. For instance, after the United States eliminated Quds Force Commander Qasem Soleimani in 2020, Iran launched 16 missiles at American bases in Iraq, 11 of which hit al-Assad, injuring dozens of American soldiers. This past August, Iranian-backed militias again attacked the base in Iraq, and President Trump indicated that this year he is preparing to withdraw United States forces deployed in Syria on various anti-terrorism missions, but it is not clear at this time how far those plans have advanced. Significant concentrations of American forces in the Persian Gulf can also be found in Bahrain, which hosts a United States Navy base of approximately 8,000 people. There are also over 10,000 military personnel stationed at the El Odeid Air Base in Qatar. This is by far the largest American facility in the Middle East, but additional American forces are deployed at bases in Kuwait and the United Arab Emirates. And of course, that's just on land. There are also large numbers of American naval forces deployed in the waters in and around this region, and United States Navy's destroyers equipped with air defensive systems that can shoot down incoming missiles have been stationed in the waters of the eastern Mediterranean Sea near Israel's coast. They have already intercepted some missiles that were headed towards Tel Aviv in the heart of Israel. There are also 2 batteries of the United States Army's THAAD air defensive systems that are deployed inside Israel, and these systems have also shut down incoming Iranian missiles. 2 additional American ships are in the Gulf of Suez between Saudi Arabia and Egypt. 4 warships are in the Arabian Sea near Iran, and 1 aircraft carrier is also in the Arabian Sea with another carrier on its way to this region, and this is according to a report on Fox News. Additionally, American media reported that the United States has sent more fighter jets to the region, backed up by air refuelers and other assets. So guys, here at TBN Israel, we will continue spreading the truth, and we encourage you to stand with Israel in prayer. And if you want to help us reach more people, please hit that subscribe button here on YouTube. And getting back to Iran, as I said before, there are concerns that most of the enriched uranium at the nuclear facility in Fordow was moved to a secret location before the American attack. A senior Iranian official said as much to Reuters in a report published this morning. The report also said that the number of workers at the site had been reduced to a minimum. Satellite images of the Fordow nuclear site from June 19 to June 20 show more than 15 trucks at the entrance to the site. It's possible that these trucks were used to transfer nuclear assets and equipment from that location. Israel's intelligence echelon believes that the stockpiles of enriched uranium was held at the facility in Isfahan, and it is still unclear whether the uranium was destroyed or merely buried under the rubble. In this context, it's worth taking a note of a statement by a senior Iranian official who a Qatari media portal stated that the Trump administration notified Iran before the attack, conveying a message that it is not interested in a total war. If that's true, then it might have given the Iranians time to move anything that they could move and didn't want to destroy at the Fordow facility. But we do not know yet what's going on, and we will keep reporting you on everything that's happening here in this war when we receive the updates. And meanwhile, the BBC reported that Britain received an advanced update before the American strike on Iran, but did not take part in this attack. So guys, here at TBN Israel, we will keep reporting on any development in this campaign against the IRGC regime in Iran, and we ask you to continue spreading the truth, share, and follow us. And most importantly, do not forget to click that subscribe button so that you remain tuned to the truth in real time, and pray for the peace of Jerusalem. So guys, when you pray for Israel, make it personal. Pray for millions of children, of families that need to rush to the bomb shelter, including my family, Mati's family, and the family of all the TBN Israel workers that are working day and night under fire, literally in weekends, to bring you the truth of what's happening here in Israel. So pray for them, pray that God will give wisdom to our leaders, and unite in prayer for the peace of Jerusalem.